Now it's being recorded. So Mauricio, yes.
Okay, can you see it?
Okay. Yeah, more or less. If you can zoom a little bit, I think that we can all see um, better.
Okay. Okay. Well, so what I try to do is basically try to identify the parts that are involved in the practice that we did. First,
Yes.
I included the Google Colab, especially the server provided by Google Colab, and I consider that as an infrastructure as a service because we had the resources given by Google Colab, and then we also have
Mhm.
app
Mhm.
services. Okay, app
Ah,
services,
but okay. Mm-hmm. And app
uh,
services is what?
platform
Where
as a
are they
services.
lying? Uh-huh. But for these are different cloud providers, are they?
Yes, yes, they are different.
Mhm. So something that is missing in your diagram is that it would be nice to exhibit the both providers. Now to the left, Google Colab, which is your Google Cloud Google provider, so the Google Cloud, and then to the right, the um, Azure Cloud. You know, to exhibit that in fact you are making interact two clouds.
Okay, so I put here
Okay,
Azure app
there,
services.
yes, I mean you can, yeah, I mean you can, I will show you one that I did. You can, yeah, have the icon of Azure or just have a little cloud and then say this is Azure, and what I'm using here essentially is Azure App Services. You have your architecture is fine. It's just it's middle grain architecture, which is fine. Okay, good.
Okay, I realized.
Service, yes. And then you
Then
have. Mhm.
um,
If you
uh,
want to be very, very precise, for example, in the left side, you could, for example, in fact, we have a server, but if you remember when we were in Jupyter, in the notebook, we have, in fact, it's associating RAM and CPU, and all together, in fact, it is a virtual server. Okay, so if you want to be very, very precise, what you do is you can exhibit the CPU and RAM, and altogether, both of them are infrastructure as a service, and then they are packed into the server. Right.
something like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And then another thing that is missing in the left side is Collab is also a package, and the package consists of storage, which is Google Drive, and an execution environment, which is Jupyter. In fact, the notebook is running on Jupyter, and inside you have the Python interpreter. Were you acquainted with Jupyter or not?
Um, Not so much. I saw it once, but
Okay, but you
yes,
haven't tried it in other projects. And is this the
no.
case of the others? So in no project in any course you have tried Jupyter. Is this right?
Well, for my case, yes, I haven't tried.
Uh-huh. And the other folks? Okay. So in artificial intelligence, for example, you didn't use such kind of support. But do not stop sharing your schema.
Okay.
Don't leave us. Okay.
I think that once we
Uh-huh.
use it once,
Then Google,
but
go to the left, go to the left. Google Drive, right? I'm using your your schema to unbox things, okay? So just to be sure that all the components are exhibited and that you really realize what we are using, okay? It's a very detailed thing, but it doesn't matter. I mean, for the time being, it's good that we exhibit this. So the Google Drive is separated from IIS. The Google Drive is another thing. So it's another service. It's a storage service, but it's independent of the server. In fact, we have uh, two things: the server, which was memory and CPU, and a little bit of disk because we could install things. But then Google Drive was another thing.
oh, okay. So I put it like here,
And
separated.
you can put it or upside on top of Collab because Google Drive in fact is part of, or you can put it there. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So if you remember, what we have is we have Google Drive, and there landed all the codes that we were that was coming from GitHub, and it landed there. Okay, so the package
Oh,
of
okay.
ngrok, the example, the code, the Python code of provided by Azure from Git, all that was landing in our Google Drive. For the time
Okay.
being, we didn't use a lot of data, but if we have data, for example, it would land there.
Okay. Something like that,
And just
right?
for the record, the main difference of having Collab, we will have a look at other kind of services, is that we are consuming from our Google Drives. Okay, there are other Google solutions that provide us with separate um, storage space, and we are not consuming from the one that we have because we have a Gmail account. Okay, so that's a little. But wait a minute with the arrows. Do not connect. Well, yes. I mean, why not? Okay. So there's Google Drive. Okay. So I'm just working the components. Okay. Then we will go through the arrows.
Okay.
Okay, right, and that all bunch of things for those that are having a look at and I have left the session. No, it's not true. It's the Google Cloud elements that we used. Another important thing to see is that in fact the application, the port. Yes, and we are missing before something in Google Colab. You have to exhibit the interpreter of Python and Jupyter, which is the execution environment of the notebooks. So you see the notebook, in fact, you have seen it's an HTML page, okay? But the little cells, in fact, are connected to an environment which is called Jupyter. And this environment, in fact, interprets the content of the different cells composing a document, okay? And it provides us with several tools in order that we can deal with our notebook. We can move cells, we can execute our cells, etc. Okay, so and this Jupyter environment, in fact, can have your code, code in notebooks can be written in different languages. In our case, we use Python, but it's possible to use R, which is a data analytics language quite used by other engineering disciplines. You can have F sharp. You see many different languages that can be connected to this Jupyter environment. And it's just that the unit of construction is this notion of notebook. So you have the Jupyter environment. So today, and particularly, well, us, as soon as we will touch more data than applications, we will use notebooks. It's a very popular solution because you can share, you've seen those that have problems, you share the access to the notebook and I can enter to your space and execute, and we can collaborate in order to provide very intuitive solutions. So this is a way of working in data analytics. Okay, so that's the idea of the notebook. Okay, so you have Jupyter, you have the interpreter of Python somewhere over there. You have to include. That's good. Jupyter is fine, and you can leave it for using Python. It's fine, but then you also need a little box or a little icon saying that you have the interpreter of Python, because in fact you can have different interpreters, and that in our case we're using Python, right? Excellent. So questions until here. These are all the little elements that the services, remember that in the cloud jargon, we reason, and the unit of delivery is the notion of service. So we used infrastructure as a service, CPU and RAM, that composed the server that was allocated for us in order to run our code. Then we have infrastructure as a service, and of course the storage provided by Google Drive, which is also infrastructure as a service, plus the nice service, the nice application, which is software as a service that lets us play with the file system in in a graphical manner. Okay. Now, then you have the platform as a service, which was the Jupyter environment, execution environment, the Python interpreter, and that was it for the Google Cloud. So you see, even if it seems that we are using very few services from the cloud, in fact, we have allocated quite a bit of other services that support our environment. And well, since we use the free trial version, we just consume, in fact, some storage, and our executions are too little, so they do not harm the execution environment of the cloud. But if we were increasing in scale there, we will see that at some point they stop us and they say, well, if you want to run more cycles, now you have to pay. Okay, so but for the time being, this is enough. And so we use all these services from the Google Cloud in the case of the exercise. So, do I have questions until here?
Yes. So the Google Drive is infrastructure as a service?
Yes, it's storage. Plus, if you really want to be very, very detailed, then you can add the portal. I mean, the application that it's running on the web application that we access through the browser, and this is a software as a service. We are not using terminal. We could use terminal, but we are not using terminal. We are using this nice environment, and you can also exhibit the file system. In fact, you have the storage of the Google Drive, you have the file system, and both of them are exhibited as a software as a service that, which is a web application that we see on the browser.
So is the file system? Can I put it like
Yes.
this?
And this is the file system is platform as a service. Platform as a service, and then the web app, the Google Drive web app, is a software as a service.
Okay.
Right? You can use the same reasoning. For example, if well, you are OneDrive users, no? So it's more or less the same as Mauricio is showing here. I don't know if you see my mouse, but in fact, in OneDrive you have 1 tera of storage support because you are Microsoft users. Then it provides you with the file system that you can access either on the browser or have a mirror in your machines. And then you have when you access through the browser, you have this web app that lets you play with a GUI with the files. And if you have a mirror in your machine, well, your machines have this, the file system is an application that provides us with this GUI interface so that we can have this experience of dragging and dropping the files. Otherwise, if you open a terminal, you can use the instructions of the operating system in order to do that, and then you get rid of the application and you are just interacting directly with the space, with the storage. Through the file system, of course.
Okay. It's okay to put it like Google File System?
Yes, Google File System. This is a PaaS. Yes, you have the Google Drive web app, which is a software as a service, and you have the infrastructure, which are the disks.
The disk. Okay. And the Python interpreter is
No, Python interpreter, it's a platform as a service. So everything that it's compilers, interpreters, DBMS, all these are platform as a service. So everything that is horizontal to an application, it doesn't make part of the application logic, is platform as a service. The operating system is platform as a service.
Okay, okay.
You see?
And how do we identify system as a service? No, yes, it's system, right? As a service?
Software as a service.
Software as a
Remember
service.
that the three levels of the cloud reference architecture is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service.
Okay.
Right? Others, yes, tell me.
How do we identify a software as a service?
Any web application that you access on your browser.
Okay.
The Blackboard, for example, here, this horrible web application that we run on on the web browser is software as a service. The applications that you install in your smart devices, these are software as a service. So in fact, it's an app that gives access to the backend of the system. And that you have learned, are you acquainted of the three-tier architectures or multi-tier architectures?
Yes, it's the client, server, and data storage, right?
And the backend and the storage, and then the client, well, you have an application, a graphic application, which is the client, and normally it can run on a web server, but this time the web server is in the cloud, so it's a software as a service. So everything is delegated to the cloud, and you just access this application on top of it.
Oh, okay.
You see, the cloud has many different doors. So the most evident door is a web browser, where and it provides with applications that give you entrance to this whole bunch of services that seem a little bit hidden from the normal users. So again, if you are proposing a startup, then you will have to do this. You have to consider which is the back end of your solution, then which is the front end of your solution, and then where you are going to deploy both the back end and the front end. The solutions that we are seeing is that everything, the back end and the front end, are deployed on the cloud.
Oh, okay, so our front end is Google Drive web app in this case, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. And this is our backend, the server, and
And
go
the
ahead and
server and the code and all this is backend.
okay.
And the thing is that the backend is huge. I mean, it has many different layers because everything is chopped up within a cloud because they have to make business out of it. Okay, so if you chop up your layers, then you can charge the users of every different element that you are providing.
Oh, okay.
Questions from the audience until now? As I said, do not look at the arrows. The arrows will come later on. Now we're just identifying the components. Clear as water? Ah, we haven't got yet there. In fact, ngrok, his architecture is not right. ngrok will lie on Google Cloud. In this case, so you see the ngrok part, do not have a look at them. We haven't discussed that yet. For the time being, we're on Google. Then we will see the ngrok case and the CLA cases are particular things that we will discuss in a minute. So just give me 2 minutes and we will go back to ngrok.
Okay.
Other questions? Do not be shy. If you prefer asking on the chat or on Slack, you can also, if you feel more comfortable writing, do not hesitate. Okay, so let's go to the right part, which is Azure. Okay, so now we leave this Google provider, and now we go to Azure. What are we using in Azure? So yes, we are using the Azure App Services, which is a platform as a service. Inside, we have again servers that are deployed in these Azure App Services and that host our application. Okay, so inside this package of Azure App Services, we are consuming CPU, memory, and also storage. And if you remember when we went into the portal and we could have a look at the application that was running, etc., that is the web app that gives us access to the services that we are using in Azure. Okay, and there we could have a look at the CPU, etc. Yes.
So we have the servers, and then we also have the web app, right? In the browser.
And the web app, which was yes, everything is inside this little world, which is Azure Apps. In fact, well, I mean, if they I'm not sure if we are going to see really Amazon, but for example, in Amazon, you can have a very fine-grained access, but also in Azure, a very fine-grained vision of the different services, almost at the level of function, okay? But this becomes complex. So they grab up several services of different layers in one uh, added value service in order to make it easier for programmers to use the solutions. This is the case of Azure App Services. Behind, as Mauricio is doing, you have services, etc., and they provide you with web apps that can let you easily manage all the services that are running behind. And for example, well, within the server and also within the storage, we have the application that we programmed in Google. We deploy it on Azure. So in fact, it was running in already in the Google Cloud, but then we decided to put it on Azure and then add some things. As I said, in a moment we are going to see what is going on with ngrok. Okay, so that's Azure, and then let's go before we touch ngrok. What about GitHub? Well, GitHub is also part of Azure. Okay, GitHub is a service from of the Azure solutions, and in fact, there we are using storage. This storage is independent of the one which is allocated by Azure. So you have storage, you have a file system, and in fact, there were two users. The code that was provided by the Azure tutorial, that was one thing, and then the gist that me and my colleague prepared for the exercise. Okay, and all was lying in Azure, but it belonged to different owners. what happened with the okay. So while Mauricio comes back, let's discuss about about two important things. So now, for the time being, first question is regarding the components of the environment that we prepared. Everything is clear for you. So you managed to see the different elements. That's the when you have to draw and understand an architecture, the first thing to be done is have this extensive identification of the different components that compose your architecture. Then you can decide to grab them in order to make the architecture more legible, but in your mind, it should be clear as the water that which are the elements in a fine-grained fashion composing your architecture, because you are the programmers and the engineers, okay? So then in order to explain or whatever to other people, then you can decide to facilitate and summarize the figure or the components so that you cannot perturb the understanding of other people. But in your minds, this should be clear. And with once you have these all these services, then comes the part of really implementing the application. And there are two important things that we used. First of all, we have to use a terminal solution that could help us prepare and bring the code, etc., and perform operations on the servers that we were going to use in order to program and then to deploy the application. And this was CLI. What happened with CLI? In fact, the code and the service lies in Azure, okay? So normally, well, that's something that you are acquainted with, particularly those that use PC. At some moment, at some point, you have to install a kind of solution that can let you deal with terminals and work from terminal with the system. Okay, and this is an application that you install. Well, this application we used the Azure solution and we installed it in our Google Colab environment. Okay, so it was an application that we installed in the server that was provided by Google Cloud in order to let us have this terminal solution to deal with the preparation. So I'm going to share my screen. Yes, here. So so can you see my browser? I think you do, no? Oh, not anymore. Okay. Now you can see. Okay, so you see here, not here. It was ngrok, and then what is the CLA? Yes, here. So contacted Azure, right? If you recall I'm going to present a figure in a minute. From Azure, we extracted the code of the CLA application and we installed it in the Google server. Okay, so this was this operation, and then we saw what was happening. Okay, so now here, this it's like if we have installed a client that gives us access to Azure. Okay, so we have to, we established a kind of tunnel. Okay, we have this application installed in Google Cloud, and then we opened a connection to Azure, and this was this piece of code. And if you recall, when we once we have installed CLI, in fact, we have to log in as users of Azure in order to be granted with this use. So with this use of CLA. So in fact, we were opening this kind of tunnel so that at some points we were in fact working on Azure, and other times we were executing on Google Cloud. Okay. This is a kind of tricky thing, and it's, well, I mean, if since we are engineers, this is a great thing to do, you know, in a very easy way. You know, it's like if you have two computers, the one of one computer, your computer and mine, for example, and that you establish this tunnel, and suddenly you are executing things from my side, or you are using elements that are stored in my computer and accessing these from the outside in this very simple manner, which is the notebook. Okay, so this is what we were doing with this, and in that way we have the connection between the two clouds. Okay, so if you were curious and you had a look at what was Azure Classic in the tutorial classically proposing, in fact what they propose is that you install CLI in your machines and that you connect your machine to the cloud. But we wanted to have an intensive use of the cloud, and we externalized everything. I mean, I'm sure that you are aware that it's a great thing that we just have to use the browser in order to work with everything. Okay, if you were using your iPad, your iPhone, or whatever, or your smart device, you could do the exercise without having a computer. So this is the possibility that brings the use of the cloud for developing applications. So that was CLI. And now what happens with ngrok? In fact, what we want to do is not just, when we are working in any of the of both cloud environments, for security reasons, it is not possible that others from the outside see our services. Okay. In both cases, first of all, you have to access to your accounts, and then for the things that are installed within the server, they are not visible from the outside. And the ambition that we have with this exercise is to make these applications that were first of all running on Google Cloud and then deployed on Google Azure, that they were visible from the outside. And in order to do that, we installed a solution called ngrok that ensures the authentication process. So instead of us programming the authentication process, what we did is we used the ngrok solution that is installed in Google Colab and that is embedded in our, and then in Azure, and that it's embedded within our application such that it grants the outside access to the applications that are running in these two environments. In a secure manner, this means that at some point in the introduction, I was explaining that within the cloud, you have a certain level of security, a very high level of security. But once you go to the border of the cloud and you go outside, this security can no longer be ensured. Thanks to ngrok, we have this solution that with the authentication let us be visible from the outside and hides everything that is lying behind this access. Questions? No problem, Maurice. Do I have questions with ngrok? ngrok is not a reverse proxy. It's just a service that serves to authenticate the our application and that it can be seen from outside. Please, Mauricio.
Okay, yes, I was I was going to ask that. I don't know if I
Okay.
can. Well, I don't know if my PC is going to handle it, but I want to show if my relation was okay because I put like the enrock the authentication part and the
Yes, we have to go through the arrows for the time being. Your arrows are not right.
oh
So just do I have questions until now? And now we go back to the. I'm going to stop sharing in the meantime, and so that we can go back to the application. So you can start sharing, Mauricio, and while we try to see if others are alive and have questions. And now we are going to work and to go into the arrows.
okay.
Now you can share, I think. I
Okay.
stopped sharing. Mhm.
Should I share my the link of my
The so that we
just
can that the others can see. Yes.
just in case if I also
Yes.
okay, I'm going to share it for editing. If I'm gone, someone
Someone can
uh, just substitute.
click on the. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So you need just to in the case of GitHub you have to complete. It's more or less every time is the same. You need a storage, a file system, and you can exhibit both the code provided by Azure and then the code, the gist provided by us in order to have the exercise ready to use.
Okay, so there is a relationship between GitHub and Azure, right? Oh,
GitHub is a service of Azure,
oh, okay.
but it's just provided in in a separate manner. So I don't know if you have saw that in your emails at some point when we started our accounts. We have emails from Azure explaining us that we can have access to GitHub with particular spaces, etc. So we
Okay,
can either use our accounts and then have a little more services available, I mean operations available from Azure, or we can use it as we have been using it in a separate account, not connected to the one that is that we are using for Azure. But anyway, it's a service provided by Azure. Do not hesitate to raise hands, to stop, to me, because as you have seen, I get excited with all this, and I keep talking and talking and explaining, and well, make sure that you are not lost in the wordy speech. Okay. Of course, well, then at some point, since you have to hand in your architectures, well, you will have to draw, and maybe then you will, there will be questions coming up, and that's the idea of the exercise, that you really, yeah, chop up the everything and that you see, and you make sure that you have this control in mind. Okay. Right. So, and now come the arrows. In fact, there are the same set of components independently of ngrok. So the upper part of the figure without ngrok can be used in order to show two things. The first thing is the preparation of the environment. And then we can have a functional architecture only on the preparation of the environment. And then we can use the same figure, but to show how the application is working when it is only installed in Collab and when we have it running, deployed and running on Azure. You see, so there are three functional architectures that describe everything that we have done. So we are going to start with the one that prepares the environment. So if you go to the upper part, that is true. The first thing that we did is we retrieved you have to say what you retrieved. So you cloned the hands-on exercise from GitHub to Google Cloud, and then you opened this. Well, in fact, this was already a kind of notebook that was then executed by Google Colab. But anyway, it was cloned in your Google Drive, and then the arrow between Google Drive and Colab is fine because there you created a notebook that contained all the cloned code. So in fact, you need that arrow, then the arrow connecting Colab, which is fine. There you have the Python code, and then yes, there is another arrow from Colab to the. In fact, it's the same arrow. Put an arrow between the Google storage to the Google, to the notebook, to this little notebook that you have there represented.
This one or this one?
You have a file saying Jupyter environment for using Python, and then you have a kind of file. I suppose that's a notebook. And in fact, what happens is that the notebook is the one that exhibits the code, the Python code that you retrieve. So from Google Drive to the notebook, an arrow.
Okay.
Yeah. To the figure.
Okay.
The figure is the notebook. You see the HTML page that opens it.
something like that, right?
Something like that, yes. Okay, and then you need an arrow, again, from GitHub to the storage with the code of the application provided by Azure, which was cloned in the Google Drive, but it didn't appear in the notebook. Do you remember that? You see, at first we went to
Yes.
GitHub and we opened the code, the hands-on code on a notebook that was running already in Colab. And then from the notebook, we cloned the code provided by Azure, which was also lying in GitHub, that contained the code of the application that we were going to deploy. And that was only cloned in the Google Drive.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost in that. So
In GitHub, you have two things: the hands-on code and the code provided by Azure with the web application that we installed.
oh, okay. Oh, so I have to
Right?
put another arrow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, at some point, how do I do this? I think that I can do the following. Well, if you open your the specification of the exercise, the one that lies in the site of the course, after you in number 3 clone the example, there is a cell saying with a bank. A bank, remember that in Python, the bank is the exclamation point. We said git clone, and then we say Azure samples Python docs hello world. That instruction, what we did is we connected to git, but not the git of myself and Javier, but the git of Azure, and we cloned the code provided with the Hello World application. And it was cloned on the Google Drive.
Oh, okay. So this sample,
Yeah,
or
I'm going to stop sharing your
ah,
please your so that I can show this. So you see, it's more complicated to understand than to implement.
yes.
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 Okay. So you see, what we did is the following. These are the arrows that we are representing. So, well, I'm going to skip the CLA that we are going to see in a minute. So, and then grok. So we opened once we have opened the hands-on exercise, in this instruction, so we install CLI, we called ngrok, and then we got the application from Azure, and you had this instruction. You see, a bank, and then we call JIT, and we asked it to clone the code that, well, everything that was lying in this address. And note that in this case, the address is Azure samples. So this is provided by Azure, and it's different from the code that we were using. The only thing is that both Azure and myself are using the same service, which is JIT. But in this case, we just cloned the code into the Google Drive space. And once it was lying on the Google Drive space, we did this, okay? We said, okay, let us move into the file that contains this, well, called in this, like this, which is the clone that we created here, and that contains the code. You see?
Okay, yes, I see. So we move to that
Because we
folder.
got this bunch of files that were lying in JIT, and we put them on the file system that we were using in order to run the notebook. And then now we are moving through the file system in order to reach the code that we cloned from GitHub. And that contains, in fact, the application that we want to play with.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so I'll stop sharing the screen, and then you can, well, I can, well, no, because you are modifying. So share again, please, your screen so that we can have a look at this.
Okay.
So again, we are representing the functional architecture of the preparation of the environment, okay? Now, once we have finished with what we did between GitHub and Google Cloud, let's have a look at what we did between Azure and Google Cloud. The first thing that we did is we installed CLA in our Google Cloud. Okay, so we need a yes, that back and forth arrow that says that we install, in fact, we installed a CLA in the server that was running for us. That's what we did. Okay, and once we have this, we have this terminal environment that we could use in order to access the server that was allocated for us by Google Cloud. Okay, it's like yourself. You buy your machine, you have your operating system, etc., and now you want to use a terminal, so you get the code of a terminal manager. You install it in your machines, and now you are able to have terminals and to use the operating system shell in order to interact with the machine. Well, that's the same thing we did. We called CLA from Azure App. We installed it in the server provided by Google server, and we did much more because, in fact, what we did is we connected through this terminal both environments, the server that we were using in Google Colab and our accounts towards Azure. Okay, so in fact, you need two things. You need to have another arrow saying connect the server, or connect to Azure, of your own Azure portal. Account, sorry, not portal. It's the opposite, yes. Install and then connect. And to connect, you can, if you want to be very precise, you can put it as a function and then connect. and then your Azure account, so your ID and your password. And that's what we did. And now both environments were connected together.
Do my arrows are okay
Your
both ways?
arrows are okay because it means that, well, what you're saying there is that you connect and that it provides you with an acknowledgement, which is the case because if you remember, it said, now, for example, me, Genoveva Vargas, you are granted access to Google Azure, which was, I want to have a look. Just to guide you, it was after if you go to the specification of the I'm not even sure if you have it, but I'm gonna put it here. Yeah, that one. Yes, when you got that one, yes, there
Yes.
you have the acknowledge, and this is why you need a two-headed arrow, because we connected and then we got the acknowledge that we were already connected to our Azure accounts.
Okay. Yes.
You see?
Yes. Yes.
So normally in a functional architecture, this is the rule. If you execute something and then you get a result out of this, you need a two-headed arrow. If you just do something but you do not have any return, then you just use a normal arrow.
Install, we have both arrows because it's like a command for, and well, for,
In install, we didn't have anything because
okay.
we didn't have a feedback from the. We just got the thing and then it was installed,
Okay.
and
So
then we
I
we do not get feedback out of it. Mhm.
like this, and the
And the
arrow is
arrow is the other. It's the other way.
the other way.
You see, we pull the thing and we put it on Google Cloud.
Okay. 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 Okay.
So that was CLA. And then what happened with ngrok? Well, with ngrok, it was the same. We got the code from ngrok, a zip. We unzipped it on Google Drive, and then we executed the Gmail, no, the YAML. And by executing, so in fact, we had a script that we obtained from, well, the zip contains a script, and that script we run it, and we provided our token in order that we configure the ngrok service with our authentication token that will allow us to get out of the world in what we were going to do.
Okay. Yes. So I don't know if I can put it install and validate in one,
It's like the other one. It's like CLI. You install,
and then connect.
you unzip there, and then you execute something, but it also the and the internet will come later on. In here, you do not need to exhibit the internet because here we are in the um, preparation of the environment, and for the time being, nothing was exposed. It will be until we run the application that the internet will come into the matter.
Okay, so I remove this part.
Yes, remove the internet and that, yes, and you need two things. You need, and oh, yes, okay, ngrok, and you install. There's no Azure account there. There's nothing there. You just get, you connect to ngrok, you do not install there. You retrieve the code.
Uh, how can I put it? Retrieve code from ngrok.
You can say the name of the zip, ngrok stable linux .zip.
Go from ngrok stable linux. Okay.
And it's just a one-headed arrow from ngrok towards your server. Well, in fact, it's first to Google Drive and then, well, let's put it like that.
Okay, so okay, I see. So first the
There,
ngrok to drive.
and then it's unzipped within there with the server, and then in fact, what we did with the authentication story is we created a variable, and then we executed the YAML of ngrok so that our authentication was calibrated with our
Okay, this
with
is
our
getting
token.
a little bit complicated.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah. Okay. Something like this.
And once you have retrieved it, everything happens within your server. You do not longer touch ngrok. Because the YAML is something that you execute in the code in the server. It doesn't have anything to do with ngrok anymore.
Okay. So I have a question just to verify. Is so we retrieve the code and we and
You
also
unzip
we
it on
have
the server,
okay.
and then you
Um,
execute the YAML. But that happens within the server. It's internal to the server.
I put
Now it's
retrieve
fine.
or
That's
unzip.
good. Then
Okay.
you go to the server and you can do two things. You can exhibit two things on zip, and then execute the YAML with the authentication token.
Okay. Okay. What is the YAML or how you
The
okay.
YAML is after the, yes, there's the YAML. The YAML is a script. We will
Okay.
do extensive using of YAMLs when we will build containers and virtual machines and so on and so forth. So you have a script saying all the things that you have to do in order to prepare an execution environment, a container, a virtual space in order to run things. Okay, so I will need an operating system like this. I will need a connection like this. I will need to, in this case, connection without an authentication token, and all these elements that that you need. You have these script lines, and then the YAML is executed, and your environment is configured according to your specification.
Okay, I see. And the YAML is within the zip, right?
Yes. What we got from ngrok particularly is the YAML that has all the necessary instructions so that our environment will be covered by an authentication protocol when we will go out to execute, to call our code from the outside.
So this is why we put dot ngrok. This is the Gmail.
That's executing the YAML with our token.
Okay. So okay, I don't know if I put that part or it's okay like
Yes,
this.
but you have to put it within the server.
Okay, let me
On zip, execute,
see.
define the token with a variable, and then execute the YAML with the token.
Like this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ngrok.yaml. Okay. So, but this
That's
this is
three,
also
no?
have any
It's number three. Number three.
this three.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, it's like I don't know if it's okay. But one,
Well,
two, three.
with ngrok it's fine because it's one you retrieve, to connect, three. That's the ngrok part, which is
Okay.
independent from the CLA part. You see, everything is what we did for preparing the environment, but in fact, these are different uh, things. Different grab of bunches of instructions.
Okay.
This is what
Uh,
makes you an engineer, you see? It's not just
yes.
programming in some programming language, it's being able to prepare all this infrastructure so that someone, this is an architect, in fact, you see, and then so that someone, a programmer, initial programmer, can program, and then the person has all the environment ready so that she or he can deploy and run. So of course the code has to be stable and in good conditions, etc. But the architect will prepare all this infrastructure so that someone can go and put to be run there.
Okay. Okay. And
Right?
okay. Yes. Okay. It's fine. This. Okay.
And you that connect to ngrok is what?
Um. I don't. Well, it's part of this line.
Okay,
Is it?
so okay. But then
Or
you need a double arrow
okay.
because
Okay.
you connect from uh-huh.
So I connect
Or you can
from.
put that one and then add another arrow from the server to ngrok so that you can connect to ngrok and retrieve the code.
Okay.
And I don't know what.
And like sorry, it's the like. Well, maybe I organize it in other time.
Yes, then you can. This is just a working.
Like this, the arrow, like is because is we are retrieving, or is the other way?
Um, the thing is that, but you do that connect to ngrok. You have already done it when you retrieve the code, no?
So we go. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I
And the
reset.
arrow is in. Uh-huh. So you don't need that. You retrieve the code, you unzip, and then you to execute the YAML. That's true. Mhm. Now you see, you have represented the fact that you have the terminal and you connect to Google Azure. You have ready your environment so that eventually when your application will be exhibited from the outside, it will be authenticated. And you have all the code necessary in order to, with the application. And that's the environment.
Okay. Um, so this we did the nrock in order. Well, we use nrock to authenticate.
Yes, but for the time being, we haven't done anything. We just got it and prepared it with our token. This is the only thing that
Okay.
we did in the preparation of the environment. Remember here, there's nothing running. We are just getting up services from many different places and code and etc. And we are preparing the working environment. That's the only thing that we're doing. Not running. And until here, this is the first part of the homework. Okay, this is preparation of the environment. Now, with different arrows, what you will have to do for representing the functional architecture that runs the application, once you have this, now you have to exhibit how does this application run, which is number 4 in the specification of the exercise. Okay, so you are going to load the sample. You are going then to make use of ngrok in order to prepare your URL, and then you execute the application.
That will be another diagram?
That will be another diagram.
Okay.
This is functional architecture of the preparation of the environment. The next figure will be functional architecture of the web application running on Google Colab.
Okay, so I raised this, right? The run sample and deploy sample?
What do you
Or
erase?
uh,
Yes.
run sample
Because that's another figure.
and deploy sample also, right?
There are 4 figures to do. Now, do not use deploy, and there is no deploy sample from ngrok to anything.
Okay. So
Erase that. Yes, that's it. Like that.
okay.
And then the application deployed on Azure also out.
Oh,
Application that deploy in the out.
okay, this one.
Yeah. Now you have the functional architecture, preparation of the environment. So we will need at least 4 figures. This one, then the one that runs the application on Google Colab, then the one that deploys the application on Azure, and a 4th one that shows how the application is running on Azure.
Oh, so it's for diagram?
4 figures for
Okay.
architectures. Okay.
Uh, I just have a question.
Yes.
Um, okay. I'm missing something over here, or not, right? It's so just a clone and store it in Google Drive, and then the code is I don't know how to
It's
phrase it, but
observed. Yes, it's shown in the, well, in fact, the code creates a Google notebook. The code is a notebook, in fact.
Code is a notebook. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, I think it's okay like this. This is because of the storage. This is because we put the Google storage, we put it in the server, right?
Yes.
Because
In fact, we connect the storage to the server, but the server itself has a little bit of storage where we are dealing with the code and the installation of things, but that one is hidden. Yes, I can repeat the four diagrams. So the functional architecture of the preparation of the environment, the functional architecture of the application running on Google Cloud, the functional architecture of the deployment of the application on Azure, and the functional architecture of the application running on Azure. You're welcome. So with this, we have the first main task of what we asked in the exercise. So next time, what we will still have to do, is exhibit the processes, okay? In fact, the idea is that we show, for example, the process that uses ngrok in order to exhibit the application outside. Okay, which are the workflow that makes it possible for someone, well, first for the application to be accessible on the internet, and the role of ngrok within this, and well, other processes that are involved in this kind of exercise. So that would be the second question of the exercise. So we will do, next time we will do as today. I will ask you to have a try bringing some initial idea of the process, and then we will work together in understanding these processes, okay? So we are opening the boxes, and now we see how the different mechanisms are working inside these boxes. Okay? And that is the second part of what you have to hand in, and then well, then you will, I believe that you will have all the elements in order to compare what the Azure tutorial proposes and the case we worked here together. And then the glossary is just to make sure that all the jargon, the banks, the use of percentage in Python, the notebook, everything, you master all the vocabulary and all the concepts that are related to this little exercise, which means building applications, web applications, in an externalized manner and deploy them on a cloud. But anyway, so next time we will have a try on the process, and then you will be left free in order to complete the other two tasks while we
okay.
start doing other things.
So teacher, for the next class, we bring the second diagram, or which
No,
diagrams do we?
now the architecture, you are free to complete them and produce the four architectures. The
Okay.
next time is the process of, so you know, the workflow of how CLA works, of how ngrok works. You can, since ngrok is producing many questions. So let's say that for the next time, you have a figure, a workflow of how ngrok works in the execution of the application.
Okay. So we
right?
investigate and try to figure
No, you
out.
don't investigate, you understand.
Oh, well,
You have
investigate.
already done
Okay,
it.
good.
It's just understanding what is running in your environment.
Okay,
Of course, if you need to have a look, of course, but remember, for the next time, it's no longer a functional architecture, it is a workflow, a set of tasks. First, this happens, then, so you have to, well, I suppose that you're acquainted with UML, it's the activities diagram, okay?
okay. And only
Very good.
for nrock, right?
Yes, only for ngrok. We are going
Okay,
to work with ngrok, and then you will be free to do the other diagram.
okay. And
So there
teacher,
will be again more or less 4 diagrams for the second task. So we will build 8 diagrams
oh,
just for this little exercise.
teacher, I have a quick question. Maybe I'm repeating
Yes.
myself, but I want to really make sure that I understood. Um, so this arrow and the one that is going from Google Drive to the server, what why we did that? I don't remember quite well.
Because you need to install the code that you retrieved that is lying in Google Drive to the server so that it can run.
Okay, okay. Because I forget it and I want to take note of that. And in the notebook is just to present the code, right? In the notebook,
Yeah, the
like
notebook is the presentation of the code. It's like if you open some editor, the code.
okay, just that. I remember now, but in the future I will forget. So
Yes, yes. And again, if at some point while you are preparing um, your process or you are having a try in preparing your architecture, use Slack to ask me. I insist a lot with Slack because it's something, I mean, you can ask anytime. It's like working with me face to face. Sometimes it's, I mean, having an interaction with someone makes things easier to be done.
okay.
Okay, so if there are no questions, we are going to stop the session here. And again, ask. And while I'll see you on Friday for the theory.
Okay. And teacher, can I still ask something?
Yes, you can still ask anything you want.
Uh, okay. Aquí voy a preguntar. So the Google File System and the Google Drive web app are part from this Google Cloud, right? Service. And
Yeah, the Google Drive.
okay, okay. So we don't have
This is a
arrows or
little package.
okay, it's like a package.
No, you
Okay,
do not. I mean, it goes back and forth from both sizes, from the Google Drive to the storage and to the file system. In fact, the file system is connected to the Google Drive storage, and the web app is only connected with the file system.
file system. Do I put it like that, or can I put it like just like this? Like
Now put the arrows. Every time
okay,
that you do not have right to have components living their lives in nature without a purpose.
okay.
All the components in the architecture must
It's back
be
and
connected.
forward, right? In this, well,
Yes,
and
it's
also
back and forth.
here.
And that's back and forth too. And the what is contained in the arrow is file.
Sorry, it's okay like this?
Yes, and what is connected is file. So you get files, you get
sorry, no, I do not understand.
a file. You
Okay,
mhm.
file.
They exchange files between the file system and the storage. Well, they interact with.
Okay.
The,
Sorry.
you see, there are pages, and then pages become files. No?
Sorry, it's just that I understood that you want me to put something else, but no, you were explaining.
In the arrows, every arrow must say what thing is exchanged.
Oh,
What is the item that they exchange? So
and you
files,
just file.
text, or just the function. But if it's just the function, you exhibit the function uh, that it's executed. In fact. And if
Okay.
there's nothing, but you get feedback, you get either acknowledge, or you get, for example, that thing that we got by connecting to Azure. It's an XML document that describes the conditions in which we are connected to Azure.
Okay. And the Google Drive web app, how can I put it? Like, oh,
There
displays.
are text, yeah,
Okay.
or
Like
yes.
displays. Yes, display the files.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Files tree.
Files tree.
Yes, the files are it is a tree, no?
Oh, good.
As I promised, we are going back to the basics of computer science. It's understanding how the file system works. What do you get? What you...
Okay. And just now I have questions about Azure. So is
Mhm.
the Azure web app and the Azure servers and Azure app services, right? They are the only one
Yes,
components.
and in fact the Azure services servers are part of the package of Azure App Services. In fact, it provides you with all the necessary. Uh, all these
Oh,
servers are a package within these Azure App Services. It's an added value service. An added value service is the one that is composed by other services.
okay. And also the Azure web app is the package
It's
also in
lying
the package.
inside, yes, it's lying in
Okay.
the Azure service servers that are allocated for you by Azure App Services.
Okay. So we get the service as a software as a service, and this
Mm-hmm,
is the platform as a service and the infrastructure as a
mm-hmm.
service.
And this is the hardware.
Hardware. Okay. Now I understand
Good.
very clearly. Okay.
Okay.
So teacher, this is correct. Can we say that it's finished? It's just that
Yes. That one
I don't want
is
to do something.
finished.
Okay.
Now you see the principle, and then you can continue to complete the other three.
The other three. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Have a nice, it's morning there, no? Well, anyway, have a nice day and see you on Thursday.
Thank you, doctor.
On Friday. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice
Have a
day,
nice
teacher.
day too. Bye.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Could it be possible for me to re-upload my work? Because after all that we saw today, I think that I would like to make some adjustments, and I actually uploaded with the wrong name, so I was going to ask you from the
Yes,
beginning.
yes, yes, of course. Yes.
Well, thank you, teacher.
Mm, you're welcome.
Teacher, I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
But this diagram is just like the question of Carlos Ruben confused me. W- We didn't have to upload this, right?
At some point, you have to upload them because this is a handing uh, exercise. So you will have to hand in these, the other three, the process, the all the tasks that I've asked for in the exercise. However, I mean, it's undergoing.
Okay. So my classmate is a little bit confused, and well,
I think that yes, yeah, this comes from the fact that I think that it's you have a scholar way of thinking. Normally, what will happen is that we have this kind of exercise. You can start uploading things. That's not a problem. So you start uploading, we can discuss, and at some point when we finish the exercise, then you have everything up there.
okay,
It's just
perfect.
that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, teacher.
you're
So
welcome.
for a lot of questions.
No problem.